are discussing the topic of abortion and women's rights, specifically the right to bodily autonomy, which in many ways is being challenged right now with certain laws that are being passed in certain states that essentially make it extremely difficult for women to get an abortion legally. So with that in mind, I decided I wanted to put together a panel tonight, a great panel, if I don't say so myself, to discuss this topic. And really, I'd like to stress that for the benefit of the viewers, this isn't a debate. This isn't intended to be a debate on pro-life or pro-choice. This isn't that. This is a group of people getting together and expressing their opinion. I do think that there's a certain time and place for diversity of opinions and arguments for or against abortion, conversations that frankly need to be had because we live in a diverse country. But for this show, I wanted to highlight the opinions of people who could personally have been affected by this, basically people who were born with uteruses. We're going to talk about what motivated the recent changes and look at the religious divide between the pro-life group and those who favor choice. But I definitely wanted it to be a discussion mostly with women who could be pregnant, have been pregnant, could have had an abortion, whatever. And that's not me, and that's not a lot of other people. So with that in mind, let me bring in the guests. My first guest, I think most of you will recognize her from her many appearances on the Atheist Experience. She's also co-hosted the Ethan and Jenna call-in show, which addresses mental health issues. And she is a recent first-time mother. Please welcome Jenna Belk to the show. Jenna, welcome aboard.
Hello, and thanks for inviting me.
I'm so happy to have you. I am just as happy to have a fellow ACA person from the nonprofits, Miss Jenna Miyu. And she's going to be joining us as well. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me, Bryce.
I think this is your first time, both of you actually, this is your first time on my show, isn't it?
It is.
I am very excited. I hope you guys are excited.
I'm excited. You got double the Jenna. So
I was going to say.
I do. Jenna and Jenna, it's going to be amazing. And someone whose first time, this is definitely not their first time on the show, she was on my first live show, is Cynthia McDonald, also co-host of the nonprofit. Cynthia, come on down. Welcome back.
I bet $1.
I'm really happy to have you back because you were a fan favorite from my first live show.
Aw,
so thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me. I can't wait to have this discussion.
Yeah, awesome. And you know what? In anticipation that religion could come up or that the Bible might possibly come up in this discussion, I thought of calling on one of our resident Old Testament experts. At least she's an expert to me, Miss Biddy Buddha, fellow Tang resident here, who might educate us specifically on what some of the theistic objections might be and whether they're valid or not. So Biddy, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but
you know what? Everything is relative, right? Right? You may not be an expert compared to a 90-year-old Jewish scholar who's done this all his life, but compared to me, expertise. And last but certainly not least is our very own Sunny Shell, who is returning to us after a period of moving and house hunting and getting settled. Sunny, welcome back to the Bryce is Right.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be back. And let me just say that your very first show with Cynthia, I have to second what you said because I was so into that. And Cynthia, you were fantastic. I'm so thrilled to be on a show with you.
Oh, I'm blessed.
Yes, and we are thrilled. We are thrilled to have you back. Welcome back. This is your second home or your home away from home.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So before we get started, though, I want to state my opinion on the topic. I want to state my opinion first, and then I kind of want to take a hands-off approach because I think people need to hear a diversity of opinions. I personally would like to listen to a public conversation on this issue from members of the affected community, which is the panel, right? So Other voices are important. I think all voices from all demographics should be heard, especially because we live in a divided society. And that's why I'm going to offer my opinion now for the record. And then after that, I'm going to give the panel to the floor, and I will just guide the discussion with some questions. So my opinion on abortion is essentially this. In the general sense, I am pro-choice. I used to be pro-life. Back when I was a Christian, I was very much pro-life. I considered abortion a sin. I thought it was immoral. I thought it was killing an innocent life. And then I sort of transitioned to what I like to call pro-choice, but anti-abortion. And in that sense, I disagreed with abortions. I still thought it was wrong, but at the same time, I felt it was wrong for women to have the right to, or to not have the right to control their own bodies. I thought that that was wrong too. And I recognized I'm not a woman. I can't really be in this position. I recognize God is against it, but I have to, from the legal sense, women should have the ability to make that choice themselves. And then finally, I transitioned again to being fully pro-choice. I no longer hold the same views that I did before. Part of that transition involved a learning process, learning more about science, learning more about biology and psychology and philosophy, learning more about the Bible and what it really says about abortion, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But most of all, learning about ethics and morals and rights. So learning changed my views. And I'm hopeful that with better education and just a willingness for people to consider, people who consider themselves open-minded, a willingness of them to listen to other voices, which have traditionally been a silent minority, despite making up over 50% of the population. So I'm hoping that mindsets can be changed the way that mine was. So with that, that's really all I have to say about it. That's the extent of my opinion, and I'm going to open the floor up. I am going to start with some questions, though. I would like to kind of go around the room to see what everyone's position is. So let's start with you, Jenna. I'm just going to go in the this order. Not sure how that's appearing, but Jenna Belk, pro-life, pro-choice. What do you think?
Pro-abortion.
Pro-abortion. All right. Does that mean that you are advocating for abortions, or you are just for the right of a woman to have an abortion if she deems that that's necessary for her?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that it is a medical procedure that should be optional to anybody who wants it.
Fair enough. Jenna, Miyu.
I am pro-choice. I've always have been. Certainly have not had that experience myself, but have known family and, of course, patients that I have either closely worked with or not as closely with. So definitely bodily autonomy is important. The medical understanding of what an abortion is and the stages of all of that is important to understand too. So that is my stance on that.
Awesome. Cynthia?
I am pro-choice as well. I do believe in bodily autonomy. I believe that a person should be able to have a medical procedure no matter what it is, as long as it's a choice that they make. And they should not have any state or outside entity telling them whether if they can have this medical procedure or not. I have wavered in the past, being when I in my Christian days. However, I am firmly on this hill that I was going to say die on, but not really. But I have definitely formulated an opinion about, a woman's right to choose. And I think it's a little bit more personal for me because, I've been through, going back and forth if I was going to even make that choice myself. So I definitely feel that is a choice that a person should be able to make without impediment. And it should be a decision between them and their doctor.
Awesome. And thanks a lot for the super chat there, Shane the Skeptic. I agree with the statement. I think most people probably do. Although for some people, their position may be both of those, being pro-abortion and pro-choice.